Before I call the meeting to order, I will ask everyone to please silence cell phones or other electronic devices, and I'll call this meeting to order at 6:30 p.m. by recognizing the traditional keepers of this land and specifically our neighbors of the Alderville First Nation with a formal territorial acknowledgement. We respectfully acknowledge that the municipality of Brighton is located on the Mississauga and Anishinaabe territory and is the traditional territory of the Mississauga. The Council of the Municipality of Brighton respectfully acknowledges that the Mississauga nations are the collective stewards and caretakers of these lands and waters in perpetuity, and that they continue to maintain this responsibility to ensure their health and integrity for generations to come. We'll begin with an approval of the agenda moved by Deputy Mayor Anderson, seconded by Councillor Fredis, that Council approve the February 13th, 2023 Council Planning Agenda as presented. Is there any discussion? Those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. Members of Council, do you have any declarations of pecuniary interest? And if so, please state the general nature thereof. There are none noted. We have no delegations this evening, so that takes us to our statutory public meeting with a motion moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Councillor Wheeldon, that Council move into the statutory public meeting February 13th, 2023 at 6:31 p.m. Is there any discussion? Those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. Municipality takes steps beyond the requirements of the Planning Act to engage the community in land use planning initiatives, including requiring developers to host information sessions in advance of providing the municipality a completed application. The municipality also holds a statutory public meeting on the planning application in order to capture comments and concerns from the public. Council will then receive a staff report with a recommendation on which Council will make a decision. After Council has made our decision, any person or public body may appeal Council's decision to the Ontario Land Tribunal as long as they have made an oral submission at the statutory public meeting where the planning matter was heard, or provided comments in writing to the clerk's office before or during the statutory public meeting where the planning matter was heard and requested notice of the decision from the clerk's office. This is also true of any person or public body that wishes to participate in the appeal. For details or information on appealing decisions of Council, please visit the municipal website or contact the municipal clerk. So the only item on our statutory public meeting is with regard to 40 and 42 Rosslyn Drive, File B21, 2022. It is to address requirements under the Planning Act for hosting a public meeting before Council makes a decision to obtain public input toward making any decision on the proposed application. So, Mr. Warren, by what method and on what date was notice of this application given? Your microphone, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The notice of the subject applications was provided in accordance with the Planning Act on the 23rd of January of this year to all property owners within 120 meters of the subject lands. Additionally, there was a public notice sign placed on the subject lands, and it was circulated to all agencies as required under the Planning Act.
Thank you, Mr. Warren. Would you please explain the purpose and reason for the subject application before Council this evening?
Certainly. The purpose of the consent application is essentially to facilitate a lot line adjustment in order to provide 40 Rosslyn Drive with a slightly larger rear yard. So the application is to sever a small triangular portion of the parcel next door at 42 Rosslyn Drive and add it to the neighboring parcel at 40. The small triangle parcel has no frontage, no access to a public road, and is approximately 83 square meters.
Thank you, Mr. Warren. Are there persons present who have questions or comments regarding the subject application? You're good, Steve. And there's no one joining us electronically. Members of Council, any questions or comments? Councillor Fredis?
To the chair, thank you. I'm just curious, the neighbor in 42, or is it 40? Are they contacted and asked if they're agreeable to giving up this little piece of their backyard, or is that an unoccupied lot at this point?
I know for sure through the chair, I can tell you both homes are there because I just saw them about 15 minutes ago and I saw the sign on the parcel. They would have been, I believe, notified, but I think maybe the applicant would have been the owner of both homes at the time. I think that may have been, unless the ownership's passed over, in which case they would have been notified. Absolutely.
Mr. Phillips, do you have any comment on that? Just to clarify, 40 and 42, who the ownership is, and if that person, being you or otherwise, has been notified?
Hi, thank you. Yes, currently we own both properties. Rosslyn Builder owns one side and we own the other, number 40 personally.
So it would appear that the applicant and his neighbor, being the applicant, are aware of the situation.
Any
Thank
other
you.
questions?
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from members of council? Mr. Warren, any final comments? Don't we all? And there is we are being asked to make a decision this evening, and I just ask, sometimes we are asked to make a decision, sometimes we're not. Often we hold a statutory public meeting and then hold it in abeyance for a future decision. As you note, this one was a fairly easy decision, but I wonder if you could make comment about why we might make a decision on a statutory public meeting versus why we might not.
Just the availability of the information required to make a full recommendation is really the key. In this situation, it's a very straightforward and fairly simple, if I may say so, application. So we're confident going forward with a recommendation to council.
Thank you, Mr. Warren, and the neighbor didn't object, so we're good. So the decision before us is moved by Councillor Ferreira, seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson, that council receives the staff report dated February 13th, 2023 regarding consent application B21, 2022 as prepared by staff. And that council grant provisional consent to application B21, 2022 subject to the following conditions. A digital copy of the registrable survey for the lots and the appropriate deed transfer be prepared and deposited with the municipal clerk. The surveyor deposit with the municipality a geospatial data file of the surveyed parcel fabric with respect to the severed and retained land submitted to the satisfaction of the municipality. The owner provides to the municipality a registrable description on a deed for the subject lands for use for the issuance of a certificate of official for consent. The certificate of consent includes reference to subsection 3 and 5 of section 50 of the Planning Act 1990, that it applies to any subsequent conveyance or transaction of or in relation to the parcel of land being the subject of this consent. A confirmation for the applicant's solicitor that the severed and benefiting lands will merge on title. The solicitor for the applicant shall submit an undertaking to the municipality to the following effect. I hereby personally undertake to prepare and register an application to consolidate parcels for those lands being the severed lands herein and those lands being the benefiting lands herein, and provide to the municipality the registered application to consolidate parcels as soon as possible after registration of the severance transfer and designation of the new PIN to the severed lands. Is there any discussion? All in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. And that ends our statutory public meeting with a motion moved by Councillor Wheeldon, seconded by Councillor Rowley, that council move out of the statutory public meeting February 13th, 2023 at 6:39 p.m. Is there any discussion? Those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. That brings us to the only planning report that we have before us. It is with regard to the assumption for public use of roads being Cardinal View Subdivision. It was prepared by Mr. Gooding, who is not with us this evening. So Mr. Walsh, Director Walsh, I'll ask if you have anything to add or highlight on this report.
Nothing further to add. Nothing further to add, council.
Thank you. I have a motion moved by Councillor Wright, seconded by Councillor Wheeldon, that council receives the staff report regarding the assumption for public use of roads and all related above and below ground services and utilities for Cardinal View Subdivision. And further, that council enacts a bylaw to assume for public use the roads and all related above and below ground services and utilities, including transportation, water, sanitary and storm infrastructure, specifically identified in Registered Plan 39R 13909 Cardinal View Subdivision. And further, that if required, prior to the mayor's signature, the municipal solicitor and the director of planning and development be authorized to make minor revisions to the assumption bylaw as may be necessary to address refinement of attached schedules or to reflect legal descriptions, block numbers, etc. And further, that the municipal solicitor be directed to register the assumption bylaw at the Northumberland County Registry Office and have the authority to revise the bylaw so far as necessary for the purpose of registration. Is there any discussion? Those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion is carried. And there is no unfinished business listed on this agenda. Takes us to bylaws. The only bylaw before us is with regard to the subdivision, Cardinal View Subdivision, and it's moved by Councillor Wheeldon, seconded by Councillor Wright. The council gives a bylaw, the first, second, and third reading, and finally passes on this date. Being a bylaw to assume the roadways and certain work in Part 1, Plan 39R 13909, being the Cardinal View Subdivision in the Municipality of Brighton. Is there any discussion? Those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. That brings us to question period. Is there anyone in the gallery who has a question with regard to anything on tonight's agenda? Thank you. We do have one item to go in camera to discuss. I'll read the motion to go in camera and we'll take a 5-minute recess while staff does whatever staff needs to do so that we can go in camera. It's moved by Deputy Mayor Anderson, seconded by Councillor Fredis. The council resolve itself into closed session February 13th, 2023 at 6:42 p.m. pursuant to the Ontario Municipal Act 2001 as amended, subsection 239(2)B, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, and F, advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose to discuss HR matters. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried.